Welcome back to Let's Talk Race and Marlon. I'm your host, Harrison Paul. Today, I want to talk about a conversation that is really bringing a lot of conflict, but from people who would consider themselves, lean towards the left. Of course, a lot of us are anti-fascism, and we're in a very conflicting place right now, especially the people in the United States. So right now, obviously, we know that Donald Trump, a very aggressive and aggressor, he is near enough getting into office. And before, obviously, Joe Biden dropping out of the race, it almost seemed as if it was really a clear view for Donald Trump. Now we're kind of seeing after, post Biden's dropping out of the race, we're seeing that Kamala really has a chance at this, which is giving a lot of hope to people on the left. Now, I'm going to use the term on the left here, but I think a lot of people I think where the confusion happens a lot of the time is because we expect a lot from people who are anti-racist, and the people who are fighting for the black struggle within America, and then we consider those people on the left. And this is the confusion that's coming here at this moment, right? Of course, we know people like Dr. Umar would not consider himself a left or anybody on the left, but because he's anti-racist, he will find himself relating a lot more with people on the left. But I understand people on the left are really, and I'm one of them in this moment of just feeling the hurt for what's happening in Gaza. And I'll put up on the screen, Israeli strike on Gaza school kills more than 100 people, and this has just been today. You guys will see this tomorrow. So, another image passed my screen, and I was just kind of feeling like, and I'm going to be honest, as all this takes place, we have the privilege to be able to kind of just say, you know what, I don't want to ruin my afternoon or my evening, or with some very gruesome images which we'll see on Twitter. And we have the privilege to scroll by, which is so unfortunate. We have the privilege to live our normal lives here in the West while what happens in Gaza continues to take place. And today, luckily enough, blessed enough, I was making some food, and as I was making this food, my hands were full. So either an Instagram video had just played and it had scrolled to the next video, and it was now playing a very gruesome Gaza video footage that was just, screaming and all sorts. My hands were so occupied that I couldn't really go to just, so I had to kind of sit with the very tough images to take, and sounds and all those sorts. And it made me and reminded me of the conflict that's been going on between people who are pro-Palestine and the black community. And I wanted to try my best to give you guys something that you could all look in perspective and take into perspective. So what's happening right now is that a lot of the people who are pro-Palestine are looking at the people, the pro-black people, who have just been trying to, by any means necessary, get Trump, or, Trump, and not just necessarily Trump. Trump is the head of fascism in this moment in time. We're just trying to, make sure that he does not win. And a lot of people are looking like, have you not just, the pro-Palestine people are looking like, have you not just seen what the Biden administration, which obviously is Kamala, has done to Palestine, has done in Gaza? They've overseen a genocide, really. How can you push pro-Kamala? How can you see any sort of silver lining in someone who is nothing short of a murderer? And I did a video on this already, and I'll put up on the screen for you guys to see it, but I wanted to hit the ground running, which I did in that video, and contextualize, of course. And anybody who's obviously watching this who has any interest in this topic will understand government to this degree. And you understand that the government that we see in America really is not the government who control the country. There is a private government, and I think this is, basic knowledge. So I don't want to bore people who already understand this, but there are basically the people who you see, whether it be the Donald Trumps, the Democrats, the Bidens, the Obamas, they'll have more so, they're the image of something. Now, of course, to a degree, they bring their ideas and whatnot, but I think the concept of democracy, especially in places like America, has been really manipulated, or the optics of democracy, because it is not a democracy, and apparently it is actually nowhere in the institution, or rather the Constitution, does it say that America is a democracy. So this is something that it's a republic, right? So they are chosen, they choose who is best. They choose who they want to put for the running. Even now, they will choose who the Democrat Party wants to put as their running. So, and then they choose from that. So they do it in such a strategical way that it makes the public feel as though they really have an option on who they chose. They put who is sitting in the highest office, when that really isn't true entirely, or not as true as it makes you feel. It's not as honest or as transparent as you feel about it. And so I think that should be brought into context, and we should allow that to be the backdrop for this conversation. So when we look at America and we look at the tragedies and the crimes against humanity and the things that are taking place in that country, we have, really Obama, who has not done the best for Africa. And it hurts me to stand here today and have to admit that, as a black person, that he wasn't good for Africa. But the question lies then, which I have to be honest, was Obama not good for Africa, or was America not good for Africa? America has its agenda at the end of the day. The American government, American endeavors, the new age imperialists, the top imperialists of the world, America, they're going to have their agenda at the end of the day. And I would like to simplify it in this moment and say, no matter who sits in that seat, the American agenda still continues, whether it's to be, an ally of Israel. I don't see one president coming along and disrupting a lifelong alliance that has been made long before, that president came into office. Now, I don't want to underestimate the pain that Palestinians are feeling, the pain that all of us are feeling on behalf of the Palestinians, to say that, oh, look, nothing could have happened anyway, so that's just the way it goes. But I want there to be some sort of accountability as well, and to be careful. So I'm not recklessly saying there's nothing he could have done. Maybe there is something Obama could have done. Maybe there is something radical that could have changed history, the courts of history, that would have been brave, would have been very difficult, would have been very heroic. And I'm speaking about Biden as well. I'm talking about Obama in terms of Gaddafi, all the sorts. Maybe there's something they could have done that would have been more braver, that probably would have not enabled them to run another term, but it would have been they would have left their name etched in American history for having done the right thing. So that's the backdrop that I wanted to set for today. And I want to then go on to explain myself, really, because I am a pro Kamala in this time, because I'm looking at this from a perspective of, the historical timeline of the United States, the historical, and them being the Western leaders. I don't like to call them the world leaders, the leaders of the first world, or whatever you'd call that. They've always set the tone for the revolution, the Black Revolution globally. We know this even historically. The civil rights movement is really what inspired a lot of African countries to push forward for their independence. This is a known thing. So when we think about how important in America and the struggle of Black America is, I always think of it as a long game. You know, it is a long game that we're playing here, and a lot of people are kind of like anti-establishment and you know, anarchists. I have friends who are anarchists, and I respect that, and at heart I am too, very much so. But I also understand that we're dealing with issues now, and we need to make decisions now. And when I look at someone like Kamala, you gotta believe me. A lot of you probably won't believe me. Prior to Kamala's actual, you know, appointment of, you know, the running candidate for the Democrat Party, prior to that, I actually had a lot of qualms with how she went about, you know. I was very hopeful in her, you know, we did it, Joe. You know, I remember I posted about her. I was happy. I was delighted. And I think a lot of Black people felt like it was quite underwhelming, thinking that this would have been the Black hero that we thought. It was quite underwhelming. I think maybe she would even attest to this. And I think there is a job to do silently. Obviously there's a job that's stuff that she could pull out right now and tell me I did this for Black America, or I did that for Black America, of course. But I definitely do think that there is more that could have been done. And even, you know, verbally, a stance she could have made for Black America to say, yes, there is a Black woman as a vice president, or, you know, a biracial Black woman as a president now. And this is something that I'm going to put a stamp on, you know, publicly in a way. But I want it to be understood that when she kind of went in, I then instantly understood that we're on a different type of time now. It's a different mission. It's a different time. It is a different goal. Listen, guys, a lot of people are saying to me, are quite upset with me. How could you support Kamala? I've posted about her a few times. How could you be? What Trump represents a state of mind that we are trying to escape from. That we are trying to, like, if you ask me today, would you rather Sir Keir Starmer or would you rather Nigel Farage? It's not really a question. Of course, I would rather neither of them. Of course, if you could bring back Malcolm X from the dead, if you could bring back MLK from the dead, if you could bring back Thomas Sankara from the dead, if you could bring back the revolutionaries who would say how it is and what it is, if you could bring me an American version of Julius Malema, I would snatch the opportunity. But if there's one thing that I understand is that Julius Malema's, in today's day and age, in the way the Western world has pacified the voice of the Black man, Julius Malema's don't survive in political positions. So we have to be honest with ourselves in our quest for transforming the foundations of this Western world or modern day society, and you know that it is going to be, you know, taking it at strides. You know, there is a psyche that the world is currently in where we still interpret certain things. James Baldwin has an amazing quote which I love, and I'm going to paraphrase it. History is trapped in us, and we are trapped in history. I think the quote said that. I'm going to have to get it up very quickly. It was a fantastic quote. I have to get it up for you guys. People are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them. That's by James Baldwin. We have to understand that there are ways of moving, thinking, operating that are still the legacy of colonialism, the legacy of slavery, the legacy of imperialism. And we are trying to undo the psyche of the earth. And once the psyche of the earth is undone, and which is what we're seeing right now with Palestine and going on, we're kind of seeing the truth for what it is. We've always been fighting for the freedom of Palestine, but it's never been as vibrant as it is today. Why? Because the consciousness, the general consciousness of the world is rising. Just because you're seeing evil rise with it, which is fascism, doesn't neglect or negate the fact that the consciousness of the earth is actually rising at this time, which is why movements like Black Lives Matter probably was the greatest global impact of all of them. Not to down talk anything that happened in the past, not to talk Louis Farrakhan's Million Man March that came to the UK, not to down talk all these moments, but to say that the general consciousness of the world is coming to this place, and of course the internet enables us to unify in this kind of way. We are trying to rectify ways of thinking, corrupt ways of perceiving life, where it is right to see a black man in a white man in a certain position, and it is odd to see a black man or woman in a certain position of power in highest office. And I know people will be upset with, of course, people like Rishi Sunak and Obama and this black faces in high places. I understand that, but you have to think of it from a perspective of like, if I was saying to my boy, we still have to take into context that when an Obama or Kamala gets into a room, they are still a black or brown person in a white room. The dream that you're hoping for, my brothers and sisters, is when that room is just as much black as it is white. So it is unfortunate that a Kamala actually has to purposefully disappoint us. A lot of you are wondering why Obama actually, disappointed us and maybe did more murders, or why is it that black people are always doing worse? And I watched a clip, very amazing clip, I'm actually going to put on the screen in just a second. It said, apartheid won. Apartheid didn't lose. Apartheid won because it caused you, the biggest enemy of the black man now is the black man. Check this out.
Apartheid didn't lose. Apartheid won.
Yeah.
Apartheid didn't lose. Not only did it win, it's still winning. The project of apartheid was not only about the exploitation of the many for the few. It wasn't just about making black people believe they were inferior. The more insidious project in apartheid, its most successful outcome, and I use the word successful for a lack of a better one, so don't get touched with that, is that apartheid was there to convince black people that none amongst them was worth anything. Kungakho today, isitha somuntu omnyama, umuntu omnyama, umuntu ozodiliza inkampani yomuntu omnyama, umuntu omnyama, umuntu ozokuframe, umuntu omnyama, umuntu ozokufaka ejele ngenzondo, umuntu omnyama, umuntu ozokubamba ngenhliziyo athi sobona ukuthi uyophele laphi,
Sure.
ngumuntu omnyama. To this day.
The biggest enemy of the black man, I really love that, is the black man. So you have to understand that there's so much pressure of him that he does not even get to really be who he should be in a room. And we all know damn well you don't expect Malcolm X's to get into a position of power. And I'm hearing a lot about how they Santa Claused MLK, and even how they were able to compromise Mandela's legacy. He was tired. We should never look at Mandela like he's sold out, but rather these people are so wicked that they will grind you down and wear you down to a place where, did he even think there was hope to be radical and outright and to execute what he wanted for the South African people? We have to remember, this is not to downplay what's happening to the Palestinians, but we have to remember that this is a long game we're playing. We are black people only being finally allowed into black rooms. That to me is a sign of progress. Why? Because if they had it their way, they would have never had us in any rooms. That's the way they wanted to keep it. They wanted to keep it where high office belongs to a white person. That's it. You can have a black job. You can serve. And someone said something quite special quite recently about, migrants, migrants. The concept of just migrants are here to serve you. Migrants are here to work and in the hospital and everything like that. And there was a lady who kind of just said, you know what? This rhetoric about just migrants are just here to serve, nurses or hospital, whatever, it's kind of dangerous. And I got what she meant. It's kind of dangerous of like, unless we're serving, we're of no use. We could go down that very, slippy slope there. And I said it to my mother. I said, what do you think? She goes, Harrison, we're at a place now where that's even too far for them to consider the migrant as a human being. As we even have to remind them, look at the positives of having a black or brown person. That's how far we are. So, and I said, wow, you're right. There's sometimes when you have to almost accept certain stages. A lot of them have to actually that's the only thing that will make sense to them right now. Oh yeah, they are in the hospitals. That's how far behind we are. So when we think of the Obamas, but you have to know that is an indication that we're moving in the right direction. Because remember, where they wanted us was in the plantation, was in the garden, a garden boy, was on the serve. That's where they wanted to keep us. So when you see us moving, and yes, we celebrated Obama merely because of the fact he was black, but not because Obama, it's because it represented something we had been fighting for generations. It had represented a moment to say, hold on, I'm scratching my eyes. Am I really seeing this? People who were in the civil rights movement were alive to say, hold on, I marched, I believed it, I dreamt it, but am I really seeing it? And some of you may say, yeah, they did it, but they only did it because they were going to use the blackface. No, they did it because they were in a new corner. They had to find a new manipulation of optics. A person only does that when you know that they're old way. Beforehand, if they had the way to tell you no niggas allowed, no blacks allowed, boom, that's it, door closed. Now they're thinking they're casting for straws. Okay, cool. We'll grab, even if we think of independence. Independence only came for African countries because it came more expensive to actually fight off revolutions and resistant movements than it did to actually just be there and present and colonize. So then that's when they had to transition into neo-colonialism. So whenever you see him transitioning, it's wrong for you to say the transition was just because the transition only happened because he had no other choice. He had to transition. He wasn't able to hold the door long enough. So when you think of Kamala, you have to think of what Kamala breaks down. And there is an amazing video and clip I'm going to put in here for you guys to watch it. Check this out.
Barack Obama traumatized a lot of European Americans. The existence of a black president was psychological trauma for them. Let me explain why. A human consciousness is seeking homeostasis. It's seeking a regulated nervous system. It's essentially seeking a state of safety, right? And how an individual consciousness kind of maps reality in order for them to feel safe is largely given to them by their culture, right? The feelings that are downloaded into them by their cultural influences. And so for a lot of European Americans, most European Americans, the racial hierarchy is a large part of this feeling of safety. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, whether it's spoken or unspoken, it's a fact of their reality maps that has been drilled into them through all of the cultural elements, through education, through historical perspective, through entertainment. And Barack Obama upended that. Having a black man or a biracial man sitting in the Oval Office, having them look up at an office they deify, that they look at as like a king. I mean, we can see that. Look at how they treated Reagan. Look at how they treated Trump. And so it literally disrupted their subconscious reality maps and how they view safety, and it made them unsafe. They went into a fight or flight mechanism from the system that yielded the black president. That's why they want a white king. And so by no fault of his own, right, by simply the racist ass nature of this culture in this country when it comes to European Americans, the existence of a black president upset the racial hierarchy. The racial hierarchy is white people on top, a black president is above them, and that's it. And so it was both conscious and subconscious rage. I mean, you saw the Tea Party emerge immediately talking economic issues. That's a legacy of Ronald Reagan's conditioning, where Lee Atwater says we couldn't be racist openly anymore, so we started talking about all these economic issues. And they're getting really esoteric, but black people get hurt more than white people. And so what they did is fuse the conscious discussion of economic issues with the subconscious feelings of racism. And so all over the place, we can see this is the disruption. I mean, what did Obama do so much? What are the policies that are so bad, right? This is actually a cultural protection of whiteness and white supremacy that was upended by a black man or a biracial man holding the highest office in the land. And that was literally psychologically traumatizing to them, whether they are consciously aware of it or not. Most likely they are not. These people are led around by their shadow, by everything they repress. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing, but they're burning fucking effigies of Obama, the Tea Party was, and it really had nothing to do with it. I mean, Trump's deficit was bigger than Obama's, right? The economic issues only pop up when it's not hard to see. And so people have been kind of pushing back on this idea that it was actually traumatizing, but I stand by that.
So you see that? The optics of there's something in the psyche of this world where high office belongs to white, and we are breaking this down. We are deteriorating the legacy. Like you said, history is trapped in us and we're trapped in history. We are deteriorating the legacy, as Christians will know, from glory to glory. One day, a Malcolm will sit in office and be in there and doing everything when we have fought so hard to press forward and for that room to not just be a black man in a white room, but it's a white and a black room. America and no other, probably even African country, even the UN. If you think of the UN, think of all the people who are really instrumental in holding Africa in the kind of like neo-colonialism, the UN, the EU, the World Trade, World Bank. Those are white rooms. These are the people who've constructed a well thought out plan to keep Africa to keep Africa in chains, systematic chains. If they hire someone else tomorrow, we know we're moving inch by inch by inch. The ultimate goal is where that room is no longer a black man serving a white room. Because he is always going to be limited on how much truth he is able to pursue. I was talking to a friend of mine, I said to him, they don't let Julius Malemas into power. They don't. We've had to take it from someone who does this day in, day out. I know what the average person can take in, can accept. They can take a Donald Trump for sure, that's for sure. A blaring honest about what he's about. But they cannot take an honest blaring about what I'm about. Because why? The world, unfortunately, at this moment in time, belongs to the white man. It belongs to him. So he will have more grace for the extremity of a Donald Trump. And we, on the other hand, are pushing against that. We, the people, are pushing against that. So when you think of Kamala, I honestly think we as a community, often on the left, are looking for perfection, which is right. We want truth. We want honesty. We want everything. You won't find perfection. And I even think the right wing understand that. They're not looking for perfection. They know this person's going to take us from A to B. This person's going to get rid of this thing. This person's going to obstruct this move from the left. That's what matters to us. I'm sure a lot of them would actually rather, Trump now the way he's appeasing black people. A lot of them would rather him throw a bunch of black people into the gas chambers. They would really appreciate it. A lot of his fan base, the Proud Boys, would much rather him talk like that. So a lot of them probably have leaders who they're like, listen, when the time comes, would much rather that person come in. But it looks like Trump is going to take us that bit further, like American football, just and rugby, that bit further down the field. We have to understand that and understand this in a mature sense, guys. Kamala knows she is not Thomas Sankara. She is not Patrice Lumumba. I'm sorry, I understand. But she is definitely the tool to obstruct not just the move of fascism, but it's like that quote I just gave you. History is trapped in us. History is trapped in people, and people are trapped in history. The mind, the psyche, the colonized mind, the colonized world. Once we fix the general psyche of this world, we can then begin introducing certain things that people won't instantly reject it. What is it? It's foreign. Because we have dripped a new society, a new understanding. Guess what? A black woman can be in power. A woman and someone black can be in power. We're introducing a new dynamic. And once we introduce this, then after that legacy has been set, we've had a black man, a black woman, half, mind you, half. Maybe the next step is to see if they'll even allow a full one in. Because we know there's a lot of people who are middle right, middle left, who are like, you know what, I can deal with this. It's easy for me to respect a person who's half, who's, I don't know how they will take a Tim Scott. That just wouldn't sit right with them, that's their authority. So we will, maybe that will be the next stage. And then we could dream about a person who's in there and like the Burkina Faso leader, saying it how it is. Radically going about truth. So that's just my take on it, guys. We have to understand what time we are in and what is necessary for this time. Trump is not only a danger to democracy, as they would say. I think Trump is dangerous to the psyche of this world. We need to be seeing Trump the way he thinks, and anyone who agrees with the way he thinks. We need those people to be seeing your time is up. You no longer win by a landslide in this new world because of your whiteness. Your whiteness no longer represents authority. Because this is not only, that's a representation of what will happen even in the workplace, never mind in the offices. In an average workplace in the UK, in the average workplace in Ireland, in the average workplace in America, it represents something new. It is a paradigm shift, a pushing towards a new world, a new dynamic, a new understanding, a new normal. And then, once we have seen that, that's why the excitement is coming from. It's not coming from because we believe Kamala is Christ, the new coming of Christ. Absolutely not. We were all kind of having, I remember even the comments on Shade Room or whatever when she's posted, like, where's she been? But one thing we know in our heart is that Trump be laughing in our faces so much that if a person like him strolls into office, where he stands at a black convention, the Black Conservative Federal Convention, where he's saying, "Oh, looks like it's black out there," I watched this. You guys should go check it out. These type of people are still getting the power. Imagine how dangerous it is. Nigel Farage incited violence, and then he just slides into. What does that say about the world we're living in? It doesn't say anything good at all. And at the end of the day, America is going to have their way with all of their relationships with the world. That's my understanding of it. There is going to be no American leader who can come in and decide, guess what? America are no longer going to be allies of Israel. I think America has set themselves up in such a way where they have backup. That person comes in and probably signs off a piece of paper. Their agenda is set at the end of the day. This is just my take on it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Also, for anybody who's watching, if you are at home, I do a lot of work with colonizing the minds, as we spoke here today. We talk about, shifting the perspective and the psyche of this world. If you find yourself as a person who is struggling with a colonized mind, as I myself was, and you need someone to talk to, someone to engage with, please click the link in my bio. I'll be happy to have a call with you, and we can just really go through this together as African people to deconstruct the legacy of colonialism that says what is right is what is white is right, what is white is intelligent, and how that manifests itself in ways that, are very insidious, that you can't even really spot or you can't see until you take a step back and say, hold on, why did I behave like that? Where are these behaviors and these beliefs rooted? If you are somebody who feels like you would like to have those type of conversations, click the link in the bio, and I'll be very much happy to have a phone call with you and we work through it together. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. God bless.
And I'm on a mission for you.